Hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to our session today on Introduction to the Registered Disability Savings Plan. Before we begin today's session, I would like to acknowledge that I'm joining you from the city of Gatineau. I recognize that and honor the deep connection of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe traditional territory, as well as the lands where each of you are joining from. The map you see behind me or before you reflects the various Indigenous nations whose territories span across what we now call Canada. We honor them all, past and present, and commit ourselves to learning from and respecting their histories and cultures. Pathway to Benefits Project is a free national initiative led by Mood Disorder Society of Canada to help Canadians with the disabilities and their families access the financial supports they are entitled to, but too often miss out on. Pathway to Benefits is funded by the Government of Canada's Disability Benefits Navigation Program. Therefore, the views expressed here today are not necessarily the views of the Government of Canada. So briefly, I'll introduce myself. My name is Diana Vince. I'm National Program Director here at Mood Disorder Society of Canada. I will now hand it over to my colleague, Ashley, to introduce herself, and following that, our guest speaker.
Hi, everybody. If you've been to one of our webinars before, you've seen me do these webinars. But I'm Ashley. I'm the National Benefit Navigator here at Pathway to Benefits, and I'm looking forward to learning alongside all of you.
All right, Jennifer.
Great. Thank you so much for having us. So my name is Jennifer Susi. I'm a policy analyst with the Canada Disability Savings Program through Employment and Social Development Canada. I'm also joined by my teammates, Krista, Connor, and Maudlin as well today. Thanks for having us.
It is great to have you, Jennifer. We're looking forward to it. So before we get started, please note that your microphones are muted and the session is being recorded. We invite you to use the Q&A function to submit any questions you may have, and we'll address them towards the end of the session. Bear in mind, feel free to use the Q&A throughout the session while our guest speaker is speaking, and the team that is joining her will be able to answer you throughout the session. But we'll take some live questions towards the end as well. Feel free to raise your hand as well, and we can address any of your questions, or if you're more comfortable, simply throw them into the Q&A. Please do not disclose any personal health information when asking any of the questions today. And as I mentioned, the chat function is disabled. However, please keep an eye on it because there will be some links to surveys, some feedback that we'd like from you. So we'll be sharing that via the chat. As always, a recording of this session will be shared with all registrants following the session in about a week or so, and it will also be available on our website at benefitspathway.ca. So we'll briefly go into who is MDSC, Mood Disorders Society of Canada, our services at Pathway to Benefits, and then we'll dive into the Registered Disability Savings Plan. So, Mood Disorder Society of Canada is a national nonprofit organization dedicated to improve the quality of life for people affected by mental health issues through advocacy, education, and support. We provide education and awareness about mood disorders to the public, healthcare professionals, and policymakers. We offer support and resources for individuals living with mood disorders and their families. And alongside all of that, we also advocate for improved mental health services and policies across Canada, all while promoting research and innovation related to mood disorders. In case you're wondering, what is Pathway to Benefits? So it is, as I mentioned before, a national initiative by MDSC supporting Canadians throughout the navigation of various disability benefits, including the Disability Tax Credit, the Canada Disability Benefit, and various other provincial and territorial disability supports. The program is free, inclusive, and person-centered, and it is one-to-one navigation support that we offer with one of the benefit navigators that will be in touch with you if you are reaching out to them. It is extremely personalized. and helps really centrally with completing applications. We have an online website at benefitspathway.ca where we have a lot of easy to use digital tools, peer and trained volunteers on standby as well. And we have organizational partnerships and tools and training to assist local organizations as well for us to be able to push out these services so that more people can know about us. And we can help them with navigation. And of course, one of our main goals is really to make sure that we reach out to as many people as possible, especially in underserved communities. So without further wait, I will now pass it along to Jennifer Susi to continue the presentation.
Awesome. Thank you so much again for having us today. So I'm joining you today from just outside of Ottawa. I'm going to keep my camera off while I'm going through the presentation here today. But again, it's Jennifer Susi, and I'm from the Canada Disability Savings Program. I'm here today to talk to you about a program called the Registered Disability Savings Plan, or the RDSP, and also the Canada Disability Savings Grant and Bond. And Diana and Ashley are kindly moving my slides today, so I will be prompting them sometimes, but thank you so much for that. So for today, we have a bit of an agenda we're going to share here with you. And just to back up a little bit as well, Krista, Maudlin, and Connor are here. So as I'm speaking, if you do have questions, as Diana indicated, please add them to the Q&A, and they'll be happy to work on those as we go throughout this journey together. So for today, we're going to talk about the RDSP. So we're going to talk about what it is, the advantages of having an RDSP, who qualifies for an RDSP, and the process that you go through to open a plan. Then I'm going to go over how you can build savings in the plan with the Canada Disability Savings Grant and Bond. We're going to talk about what happens once the plan is open, and when it does come time, how to take money out of the plan. And towards the end, I'm happy to answer any questions you have as well verbally. So let's just dive right in. And we'll move on to the next slide there. You may be wondering, what exactly is an RDSP? Well, it is a long-term savings plan, and it helps persons with disabilities to save for the future. And for those who are eligible, the Government of Canada can also add money to your RDSP, which will be covered later on in the presentation. But it is important to know, like any savings plan, especially a long-term one, the earlier you open an RDSP, the more your savings will grow. So there's many advantages of having an RDSP. Currently, in all provinces and territories, opening and contributing to a plan will not affect your other federal or provincial and territorial benefits, such as monthly disability income support payments or monthly pension payments. If you are in Quebec, New Brunswick, and Prince Edward Island, making withdrawals from a plan may impact the amount of provincial benefits you receive. Depending on the province that you live in, the RDSP may affect other provincial benefits that you do receive. So please contact the Provincial Supports Program of your province if you wish to learn more. The money from an RDSP, when it's time, it can be used for anything. So there are no rules as to what the money needs to be spent on. And you and anyone that receives permission from the plan holder can deposit money into the plan. So there's no maximum per year that you can put into the RDSP, but a maximum of $200,000 can be put in over the lifetime of the person with the disability. And you have until the end of the year that the person with the disability turns 59 to contribute. We'll go to the next slide. And this is a big advantage of the RDSP. So if the person with the disability is eligible, the government may add up to $90,000 in grants and bonds into their RDSP. The bond can be up to $20,000, and the grant can be up to $70,000. Next slide, please. So to qualify to open an RDSP, the person with the disability must meet some specific conditions. The person must be a resident in Canada for tax purposes. They need to have a valid social insurance number or a SIN. They need to be approved for the disability tax credit, and this is offered through the Canada Revenue Agency. And the plan does need to be open on or before December 31st of the year in which the person with the disability turns 59. There can be only one RDSP open at any given time for the person with the disability, although it is possible you can move your RDSP to a different financial institution. Now, the holder of the RDSP, this is the person or the organization that opens the plan. They are responsible for the day-to-day operation of the RDSP. So that includes controlling all the money that is deposited into the plan and directing when and how much money comes out of the plan. If the person with a disability is an adult, they are usually the holder of their own plan. But if the person with the disability is a child, the holder must be the person or the organization legally responsible for them. When the child with the RDSP becomes an adult, they can be added as a co-holder to the RDSP, or they can become the only holder of their RDSP as long as they have the legal capacity to sign a contract for themselves. It's also important to note that once deposited into the RDSP, all funds belong to the beneficiary. And you may see that on the slides, that word beneficiary, or hear me use it. Beneficiary means the person with the disability. So once the money goes into the plan, it does belong to that person who's been approved for the disability tax credit and who the plan belongs to. All right, next slide, please. Now, one way the government can help to grow RDSP savings is through the Canada Disability Savings Grant. And I'm just going to call that the grant. It's a big mouthful, the Canada Disability Savings Grant. We'll just call it the grant. So with the grant, you need to put money into the RDSP to get grant money from the government. The grant is money that matches the money deposited into the plan. How much money you will get from the government depends on the person with the disability's family income and how much money you're able to save that year in your RDSP. Grant is paid to match contributions made to the RDSP before the end of the year in which the person with the RDSP turns 49. So you may have noticed a difference here. I told you you could open a plan up until 59. A person who has an RDSP is only able to receive the Canada Disability Savings Grant and the bond, which we'll talk about later, up until age 49. After that, the government will not be able to match the money that you put into your plan. We'll go to the next slide. Thank you. Now, depending on the person with the disability's family income, the maximum amount of grant a person with an RDSP may get in a year is $3,500. In this case, you would need to put $1,500 into your plan to get $3,500 from the government. If the person with the disability was approved for the disability tax credit in past years, they could receive unclaimed grants for those years up to 10 years ago if they contribute sufficiently to their RDSP. In that case, they could receive up to $10,500 in a year. The total amount of money the person with the RDSP can receive in grant over their lifetime is $70,000, depending again on their family income and their ability to save money in their RDSP. Now, just remember, even if you're only able to save a smaller amount of money, the government may add up to 3 times the amount that you're able to deposit. We'll go to the next slide. Now, this slide looks a bit intimidating. It has some math on it. We're just going to work through the 2 different examples, so don't be intimidated by the numbers and the math, okay? As I've mentioned, grant entitlements, they're based on family income, and they're based on how much money you're able to save in your RDSP. So we're going to talk about the first example, okay, with the bullet on the top. When the person with the disability's family income is below or equal to the income threshold, and that's $117,045 in 2026. The person with the RDSP is going to be entitled to $3,500 for the year from the Government of Canada. So the first $500 they deposit into their RDSP is going to be matched by the Government of Canada at a 3-to-1 rate, and that will give them $1,500. The next $1,000 they deposit into the RDSP, it's going to be matched at a rate of 2-to-1 or 200% for an additional $2,000. So again, at this rate, altogether, that would mean that $1,500 would need to be deposited into the RDSP to get the full matching amount of $3,500 from the Government of Canada for the year. Now, in the second example, that's the second bullet, if the family income is above the threshold, so it's above the $117,045, the grant entitlement for the year is $1,000. So the first $1,000 that is contributed into the RDSP, it's going to be matched at a 100% rate by the government to give $1,000. All right, that was the grant. We're going to move on to the bond. This is the other way that the government can help to build savings in the RDSP, and it's the Canada Disability Savings Bond, just the bond for short. Now, the bond is money that the government adds into the RDSPs of persons with disabilities with a low to modest family income. Contributions are not required, and the bond will be automatic if the person with the disability meets the income requirement. I always feel like this should be like the portion of the presentation when there's flashing lights and sirens going off, okay? So I'm just going to say that again. If you meet the income requirement, you are going to get the bond added to your RDSP simply by having your RDSP open, okay? And if you meet the income requirement and you meet the age requirement, then you will receive the bond money into your RDSP. Again, only up until December 31st of that year that beneficiary turns 49. After that, the government is no longer able to add bond to the RDSP. Okay, next slide. So if the person with the disability has that low to modest family income, they'll be able to receive up to $1,000 of bond each year to a maximum of $20,000. If the person with the disability was approved for the disability tax credit in past years, they could receive more money from the government from up to 10 years before they opened their RDSP. Again, without having to put any money into the plan. So that even means if you're not able to save money in your RDSP, the government will still add money to it if the family income is low to modest. So for 2026, if your income is under $38,237, you will get $1,000 added to your RDSP. If your family income is $58,523 and under, you will get a portion of the $1,000. And it's possible for a beneficiary to get both the bond and the grant. It's not just one or the other. So your family income is calculated each year, and it helps us to decide if you will get bond or not. We'll go to the next slide, please. Okay, this is a slide that shows some screenshots from our website. There's 2 screenshots of a calculator that we do have there. You can find that at canada.ca/RDSP. And you can try this for yourself. You can put in your own annual family income and how much you're able to save to be able to see how much the Government of Canada would give you in grant and bond amounts into your RDSP. We're going to just work through these 2 different examples. We're going to talk about the first example on the left. So with this example, this person with the disability has a family income of $75,000. They're also able to save $500. In this case, the government will add $1,500 into their RDSP in grant money. Now you will see 0 for the bond amount because the family income is too high, so they're not receiving the bond. In the second example on the right, in this case, the person with the disability has a family income of $15,000. This person is not able to save any money. they will be able to receive from the Government of Canada $1,000 in bond money. Now, if this person was able to save even just a little bit of money, you would be able to see an amount showing in the grant section as well. So it's not just one or the other, as I mentioned. You can get both the grant and the bond. So do go to our website and you can check that out for yourself and see how much you could get in grant and bond from the Government of Canada. We'll go to the next slide. Okay, so there are a number of financial organizations that do offer RDSPs. I'm going to show you a list of those in a second, along with their 1-800 numbers. If you like, you can stay with your own financial institution if it happens to be on the list, or you can choose a different one from the list if you do prefer. The choice is really up to you. We do suggest, though, that you call to make an appointment to open the RDSP before you visit a branch of a bank. Some institutions will only open an RDSP centrally. So that means you won't be able to go in person to sign the papers. And for those that do open RDSPs at a branch, you can find out what they're going to need you to bring, and the advisor can be ready for your visit. We'll go to the next slide, please. So this list is the list of financial organizations that do offer the RDSP. I mentioned the 1-800 number there. You can see that. You can also find the list on our website. Again, give that 1-800 number a call. Ask them how you can open an RDSP. They'll let you know if you can go into a branch or not. If you don't see your preferred institution on the list, you can still ask your bank if they can help you to open a plan. Some financial planners and some credit unions, they may not be included here, but some of them can also help you to open a plan. Also really important to note that these are not all the same. Just like anything else in the world, they all do things a little bit differently with the RDSP. You may have different investment options, different ways you can invest, and some of them may also have fees associated with the RDSP as well. So we do encourage you to do a little bit of your own research to figure out which one might be right for you. Okay, we're going to move on to the next slide. Thank you. So filing personal income tax. We know this is important. It's important for everyone. It often gives access to many Government of Canada benefits. The RDSP program, we use the person with a disability's family income to calculate how much grant and bond is paid into an RDSP. And family income is checked with information held by CRA, so the Canada Revenue Agency, based on filed income tax returns. So we use the family income that's reported on your tax returns from 2 years before to calculate how much grant and bond will be paid into your RDSP. So for 2026, our system will look at your tax return information for 2024 to figure out how much the person with the RDSP should get in grant and bond this year. Now, if income information isn't available because taxes weren't filed, the person with the RDSP would only be eligible to receive up to $1,000 a year in matching grant, and they wouldn't receive any bond. Now, for children with RDSPs, grant and bond amounts are based on their parents' or their guardian's income. And when that person with the RDSP becomes an adult, their own family income is used. So no matter who they live with, no matter who supports them financially, we're now going to be looking at that 19-year-old's family income and that of a common law partner or spouse if they have one. It's also important to understand that this change in calculation doesn't happen automatically. It's going to require that when the child does become an adult, they revisit the bank with the parent or the guardian to re-sign the permission with the grant and the bond application. We also do recommend that parents start filing income tax for their son or daughter when they are 17 years old, so that when they are 19, our program will have the proper income level on file to be able to pay the correct grant and bond entitlements to the RDSP. All right, next slide. Okay, we're going to talk about withdrawals here just briefly. Withdrawals are a very specific thing to the individual that does have the RDSP, and there's a lot of different rules with withdrawals. I'm just going to get into these very generally today. If you do have additional questions about withdrawals, we do suggest that you speak with the financial institution where you open your RDSP. You can also reach out to CRA's Registered Plan Directorate. But we are going to talk about, when it is time, how you can take money out of the RDSP. And there's two ways that that can happen. The first way is through a regular payment from the RDSP. I like to think of these almost like a pension payment. These payments must start by the end of the year that the person with the disability turns 60. And once these payments are started, they must continue every year until all the money is gone or the person with the disability dies. Now, the second way to get money out of your RDSP is through one-time payments. These can come out of the RDSP at any time if the payment is allowed by the financial organization. Now, I'd just like to provide some caution, okay, with either type of payment. As I mentioned, there's rules with withdrawals, okay? So with either type of payment, there may be a minimum or a maximum amount that can be taken out. But it's going to depend on various factors, including how long it has been since grant and bond were paid into the RDSP, and the amount of personal contributions in the plan versus how much grants and bonds have been received. So as I mentioned, if you do have additional questions, you can reach out to CRA's Registered Plan Directorate. We'll share that information in a second. I also like to tell people, like, make a plan. Make a plan when you open your RDSP, or if you have an RDSP already. Talk to the institution. Talk about, what your plans are for that money, when you would like to be able to access that money, how much you would like to access at that time. Just so that there are no surprises when it does come time for a withdrawal. You may need to add additional money to the plan to be able to get the amount of the withdrawal that you're hoping for. So really important, get that sorted out and ask those questions, okay? All right, we're gonna move to the next slide. And this slide is it's very simple, but this slide and the next slide are probably the most important slides to understand in this presentation. And we're happy to go through this more if people do have additional questions, okay? So it's the big rule with withdrawals with the RDSP. As we've indicated at the beginning of the presentation, the plan is meant to be a long-term savings plan. It is not an immediate savings plan. It is not one that you are going to be able to or want to access quickly. If you have an emergency, for instance, and you wanted to be able to access a large amount of money quickly, this is not the plan for you, okay? This is a long-term savings plan where the money needs to get deposited in. If you're able to put some savings in, great, but it needs to go in and it needs to stay in for some time. Now, to help you save money over time, all the money in the plan needs to stay in the RDSP for 10 years, every time you get money in grant and bond from the government. So it's 2026. Maybe you're going to hear this presentation today and you're going to be able to get an RDSP open, which is great. And hopefully this year you'll be able to receive the grant and the bond into your RDSP. It is now going to be 2036 before you're able to access any of the money in the RDSP. If you decide to not wait for the 10 years and you need to take money out of your RDSP sooner, then you need to pay back some of the money you have received from the government out of your RDSP. We'll go to the next slide. And this slide just sort of sums up what I just said in a different way. All right. So just to repeat again from the previous slide, when you decide to take money out, if you wait 10 years since you last got grant or bond money, you will not need to pay back any money to the government. If you are 60 years old, you will not need to pay back any money from your RDSP when you take money out. Now, there is one exception to the rule, and it is if you have a shortened life expectancy, and this needs something that needs to be certified by a doctor. The plan can then be changed to a specified disability savings plan, and it would allow you to access some of the funds in your plan without needing to pay any money back to the government. But if you decide to start your payments early, or you decide to take a lump sum of money out of your RDSP before the 10 years is up, you will need to repay money to the government out of your RDSP. Okay, and we're already on this slide, which is perfect. So the helpful links and resources, maybe we could just go back to that one. if that's at all possible. Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much. So I just wanted to point these out. You can find out some different information depending on where you go. So if you call the 1-800-O Canada number, that's the 1-800-622-6232. This is where you can just get some general information about the RDSP. If you do have questions about withdrawals, we suggest you contact CRA's registered plan directorate at 1-800-267-3100. Now, the next number you're going to want to take note of. This is if you already have an RDSP open, or you're in the process of opening an RDSP and you're wanting to see if it's registered. You're going to want to call those folks. So that's the ESDC Client Services Center at 1-866-204-0357. They're going to ask you some identifying questions to make sure you are who you say you are. But this is where you can ask questions about your entitlements, and they will be able to help you out. So you can ask them about, how much money would I be able to get in grant this year? That would be the place to ask your specific questions. And again, our website at thecanada.ca/RDSP. We've got some great resources there, I like to point out. In particular, we have a new pre-recorded webinar there. So if you liked what you heard today and you just kind of want to hear it one more time, it's very similar. I know Diana's getting this recorded as well to share with you, but you're also able to check out the pre-recorded webinar on our website. And we'll go to the next slide, please. And I'd just like to mention this as well. So it's really great today that we're having this presentation, through the Mood Disorders Society of Canada. It was really great that you were able to allow us to come and join you today. But I also just like to point out that we do support organizations, ESDC does, to provide that one-on-one assistance to help folks get that disability tax credit. So if you go through the next couple of slides, we do have a full list of those organizations. So this is a very specific, depending if you're in a specific area and you need some support, but we'll go to the next slide. And you can see Mood Disorders Society of Canada. So thank you so much for being one of those organizations that is providing a lot of really great support to people. If you do need your support to get that disability tax credit, you're going to want to reach out to Ashley and Diana and all the folks there because they're going to be able to help you. And of course, all free of charge to make sure that you're able to access a lot of really great benefits. So we'll move on to the next slide. I think it's just a slide about questions. And yes, of course, we do have. Now this is a different survey than the survey that you would get provided from the Mood Disorder Society. This is one that's just for our team, and it's about the presentation you heard today. So if you have a quick second, if you would like to give us a little bit of feedback, we use the feedback to make our sessions better. So anything you want to tell us, if you'd like to, would be much appreciated. And that's it. That's all for me. So I will stop there. And I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm sure my team has been busy beavers else doing work in the Q&A area, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Jennifer, for such a comprehensive presentation. It's been great. I am looking at the Q&A. We do have one, so I'll
Sure.
read it out so everybody can hear it.
Yeah, sure.
It says, hello, this has been great. I am passionate advocate on the RDSP and do my best to educate and connect people with the RDSP brokering to Mackenzie. I am unable to locate the RDSP calculations page you showed. There used to be one, but I thought it was offline. Can you please direct me to that page?
Sure. So we had a calculator prior to the calculator we have now. The calculator we had before was more one that it showed, if you were able to invest your amount within your RDSP, how you could see that grow over time. So that calculator, you're right, has been taken offline. If you do go to our website, and I don't think I can share my screen. I don't think I can do that. But if you go to our website and you go to the canada.ca/RDSP, in the first section, you will see that you can click on it. It'll say how much you can get. It's the very first option, how much you can get. If you click on how much you can get and you just scroll down just a little ways down the page, you'll find the calculator and it will look very similar to the screenshots that I showed you. And then the calculator that we have now is a different one than before. It just shows you how much grant and how much bond you could get. So it doesn't show you, the investments over time and what that would look like with your RDSP. We don't have that anymore, unfortunately.
Okay.
Oh, and
Um,
Krista's putting it in the
well,
chat
thank you,
as well.
Krista.
Yeah.
Perfect. I was just going to be asking what is the website so I can include it. So thank
Yes.
you for
Yeah.
that. I
Yeah. For
do
sure.
not
No,
see any other questions. What I
yeah.
do encourage through to anyone who's joined us today is feel free also if you'd like to just raise your hand and ask a question live or the Q&A option. Both are available. So let us know, but I do not see it. Oh, I do. Okay. The same person does say, oh, amazing. Just clients often ask about that for their own
Yes.
reference. I love to go to the government site. Thank you all for this amazing session. Well, you're most welcome, Trish.
Yeah.
We look
Thank you
forward
so
to seeing
much.
you next month. So Trish is going to be with us. She's going to be a guest speaker at our next session. We
Oh,
do
great.
have another inquiry.
Sure.
What if the person dies unexpectedly? Who gets the money the person saved? And I suppose they wouldn't get what the government put into that account, right?
Well, it's tricky. It's a tricky question. Yeah, it's a little bit different than some of the other savings plans. So what does happen if someone does pass away? What will happen is any grant and bond that have been received into the plan. For longer than 10 years. So, say the plan has been open for 20 years, that first 10 years of grant and bond, it will belong to the RDSP. Okay. The grant and bond that has been only received in the past 10 years, that will get returned to the government. So what does happen is the RDSP, goes through a process. It does get closed down, and that grant and bond that has been in the plan for 10 years or longer, any personal contributions, any earnings, all of that goes to the estate of the person who has passed away. So we do suggest if it's possible for that person to have a will, then they're able to direct the outcome of their RDSP. If it's not possible for that person to have a will, then it would be provincial and territorial law that would dictate what would happen to that person's assets as part of their estate.
Okay.
So it's a two-parter in the sense of if
Yeah,
you've had the plan open for some time, that grant and bond that's been there for some time will be belonging to that estate.
of course. Okay. All right.
Mm-hmm.
I do not see any other questions. Let me just see if anybody has their hand up. All right. Well, if we don't have any other questions, then we could conclude. So I'd like
That's
to
okay. People can have their Friday back.
exactly.
Yeah.
I'd like to thank everyone for taking the time to join us today. Please always know that the recording of the session will be shared with all registrants in about a week or so. So we did share a feedback survey in the chat, and we'd like to invite you. A link will be shared in the chat as well, and actually it already has been, I think, to join us next week for an information session with RDSP Connect. So we're continuing this conversation, diving into it again on July 7th. We'd love to see all of you there. And a reminder that our services are offered at benefitspathway.ca. You can call us anytime at 1-888-975-9990 or send us an email at info@benefitspathway.ca. Once again, thank you so much to our guest speaker, Jennifer. It was lovely to have you with us today. Thank you to all of you that joined us as well, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks, everyone.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you for having
Thanks.
us.
Bye.
Bye.